promoting dialogue.
It's midday in Dakar, 1 p.m. in Porto Novo. Good afternoon and many thanks for staying tuned to West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and around the world. We are live on wadr.org. Welcome to Newslink. Here are the top stories. Ghana's President Mahama urges judiciary to eschew all forms of corruption.
One of the issues we're confronted with is the issue of corruption and accountability in office. And so the expectation of Ghanaians is that this government will mount a stronger fight against corruption.
Senegal's customs officials intercept over 7 billion CFA francs counterfeit notes since the beginning of 2025. Two military officials or officers in Sierra Leone sentenced to 120 years in prison, each over attempt to topple the government. In Nigeria, a bill seeking to remove immunity for vice president, governors and their deputies passes second reading.
A judicial arm of government that will be very, very effective and efficient. We should be more concerned about the legislature performing its constitutional functions.
Please stay tuned for details of these stories and more.
Christopher Aticho with Newslink.
Many thanks for joining our broadcast and a warm welcome to our listeners in the Gambia, Ghana, Liberia and Sierra Leone. Newslink begins in Ghana, where President John Dramani Mahama has dismissed claims of animosity between his administration and the judiciary, emphasizing his government openness to working with the legal fraternity. Speaking on the matter during a meeting with the Ghana Bar Association on Wednesday, President Mahama assured that his administration values collaboration with the judiciary to strengthen governance. He also urged the Bar Association to eschew all forms of corruption in order to promote good governance.
One of the issues we're confronted with is the issue of corruption and accountability in office. And so the expectation of Ghanaians is that this government will mount a stronger fight against corruption. And that is why we set up the Operation Recover All the Loot. It's not meant to witch hunt anybody. We also have the issue I thought I should raise of the judiciary and the perception of the judiciary. I believe that it is not anecdotal. I mean, several surveys asking Ghanaians, what their opinion of the judiciary is have not come out positively. And I believe that it is a duty for all of us to work to make sure that we have a judiciary that is respected. Year in, year out, you hear 12 billion CDs misappropriated, 15 billion CDs misappropriated. And how we deal with these cases are very difficult because of the constitutional procedure, parliamentary accounts committee and all that. But after that has happened, we must have a fast-track court where we're able to deal with this so that we deter people from just misusing government funds like that.
Ghana's President John Dramani Mahama. Still in Ghana, the parliament has amended the repealed some laws to do away with a number of taxes, which include the payment of the controversial e-levy betting tax, among others. This follows a total scrapping of these taxes by the legislative body. The governing NDC, while in opposition, promised to abolish these taxes, which they describe as unconventional. WADR's Nadi Tete reports.
Ghana's parliament has approved the scrapping of 3 controversial taxes: the electronic transfer levy, the betting tax, and emissions levy, in a move aimed at easing the financial burden on Ghanaians. The decision is now awaiting presidential assent to take effect. Finance Minister Dr. Kasiela Tuforsen says the tax cuts are meant to bring relief to citizens overburdened by the tax regime. But former Finance Minister Dr. Mohamed Amin Adam questioned the impact, disputing claims that reducing the tax refund account rate amounts to savings. Minority Leader Alexander Penyo-Marking also downplayed the significance of the tax reliefs, recalling that the previous NPP administration scrapped 15 taxes in 2017.
You claim you are repealing e-levy. You repeal e-levy in one with your left hand and collect more taxes with your right hand. Mr. Speaker, this is most unfair. And besides, you are increasing the period to 2028.
Majority Leader Mahama Yariga, however, argued that removing the e-levy alone will put 2 billion cedis back into the pockets of Ghanaians every year. He joked that some citizens could even use the savings to marry.
2 billion that they would have paid to government will now be there 2 billion. So this legislation, if passed, gives Ghanaians 2 billion Ghana cedis as disposable income that they can spend. They can pay their children's school fees. They can, build their homes. They can, those of us who want to get married, we can get married with it. Mr. Speaker, 2 billion Ghana cedis is being given back to Ghanaians by the passage of this.
The tax cuts will take effect after President John Mahama gives it assent. For WADR, Nadede Tete, Accra.
Back here in Senegal, the country's customs officials have intensified efforts to clamp down on the fast-paced circulation of black currency or counterfeit notes in the country. According to the customs officials, since the beginning of the year, a total of 7 billion CFA francs counterfeit bills have been intercepted in various regions. The Customs Directorate has expressed commitment to curb the economic crime. Augustine Colley has more in this report.
Since the beginning of 2025, Senegalese customs have seized 7 billion CFA francs in black banknotes in several regions of the country. This is according to a press release from the General Directorate of Customs. In March alone, 4.5 billion black notes were intercepted in various locations across the country. In Senoba, in southern Senegal, the Customs Commercial Brigade seized more than 2 billion CFA francs in counterfeit banknotes. An individual was arrested as he was preparing to watch the bills. In mid-March, just over €1 billion were seized in Kermajabel in the center of the country. 2 individuals were arrested. After the south and center, the northern region has not been spared. Customs seized more than 850 million CFA francs in counterfeit banknotes. 3 people, including a woman, were arrested. Faced with these frequent seizures of counterfeit banknotes, the Senegalese Customs Administration has reaffirmed its commitment to combating counterfeit and economic crime.
Augustine Colley filed the reports. The High Court of Sierra Leone has sentenced 2 military officers, Ali Badara Kanu and Tiamu Bangura, to 120 years in prison, each after a 12-member jury found them guilty of treason. The verdict comes after a high-profile trial surrounding an alleged plot to overthrow the government. Francis Boniface completes the story.
Ali Badara Kanu and Tiamu Bangura were convicted on 2 counts, treason and misprision of treason, as a result of their failure to report knowledge of a planned coup. The verdict comes after a high-profile trial surrounding an alleged plot to overthrow the government. According to the indictment, the 2 officers conspired between June 24, 2023 and June 29, 2024 in Freetown to unlawfully remove the government. It further alleged that between January 1 and April 16, 2024, they knew of a plot involving some 2 captains and others but failed to report it to authorities. After deliberation, the jury returned with an unanimous guilty verdict, sealing the fate of both convicts. According to argument made by the state prosecutor, Yusuf Isaac Sese, the evidence against the convict was clear and irrefutable.
Francis Boniface filed the report.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
In Liberia, the Independent National Commission on Human Rights, INCHR, has released a damning report for the year 2024, highlighting a dramatic increase in human rights violations under President Joseph Boakai's administration. The findings reveals an alarming trend of state security brutality, prolonged pre-trial detention, harmful traditional practices, rape, gender-based violence and delay in the judicial process. Councillor Dempster Brown, chairperson of the commission, emphasized that the 2024 report paints a grimmer picture than the previous years, with the situation worsening compared to the last report. WADR's Monrovia correspondent Abraham Parker completes the story.
Among the most harrowing incidents documented, a 17-year-old student in Painesville was shot and killed by a police officer on July 1, 2024. Just weeks after, on August 10, a senior police officer in a Burraville community shot a 19-year-old man following a verbal altercation. Additionally, a 46-year-old man was brutally beaten by 7 police officers, highlighting the excessive use of force that has been increasingly prevalent. That's according to the INCHR. The INCHR has also reported 12 cases of racially motivated killings across the nation, underscoring a disturbing trend of violence and injustices. On September 9, a 13-year-old boy died while in police custody, following illustrating the dire state of human rights in the country.
2024 Human Rights Situation Report is more bad of access to justice is mandatory. Police say they are investigating but no report. The inefficiency of the police, their inability to investigate and give a report.
The INCHR boss also recommended that President Joseph Boakai be intentional in his quest for good governance by removing from office his officials who are not working in the country's interest.
This government had 2 groups of people. The president's agenda is quite different from the agenda of people that are around him. The president's agenda is to develop this country, but the people around him agenda is to get rich.
The commission's findings have raised urgent questions about the effectiveness of law enforcement and the protection of citizens' rights on the current administration, calling for immediate action to address these critical issues. For Newslink on WADR, I'm Abraham Parker in Monrovia.
Still in Liberia, the Supreme Court on Wednesday reversed its ruling on a bill of information submitted by the embattled Speaker of the House of Representatives for Nati Kofa. The case has attracted attention within the political landscape due to its implication on the ongoing power struggle within the legislature. The bill of information stems from December ruling by the Supreme Court. Eche Atiso has more in this report.
In its ruling on December 6, 2024, the court delivered an interpretation of Articles 33 and 49 of the Constitution, which outline the quorum requirements and the responsibilities of the Speaker as the presiding officer. The court emphasized that a valid legislative session necessitates the presence of a quorum and mandates that the session be chaired by the Speaker or, in their absence, the Deputy Speaker. The ruling instructed the House of Representatives to adhere to the principle of ultra vires, a decision that many Liberians view as a significant rebuke to the majority bloc led by Richard Kuhn. The ultra vires aspect of the ruling has become a focal point in the ongoing discussions surrounding the bill of information filed by Kofia. His legal team is now seeking clarity from the Supreme Court regarding the interpretation of the December ruling, particularly in relation to what constitutes legitimate legislative authority and the boundaries that should not be crossed. The majority bloc has been vocal about its claims of legitimacy and authority within the legislative body, which has been a source of contention for Speaker Kofia, who has faced increasing scrutiny and challenges to his leadership.
Eche Atiso filed the report. In Nigeria, the House of Representatives has advanced a bill seeking to remove immunity for vice presidents, governors, and their deputies. Sponsored by Solomon Bob, the bill, which passed its second reading on Wednesday, aims to amend Section 308 of the 1999 Constitution to allow these officials to face criminal and civil prosecution while in office. Proponents argue that this will curb corruption, reduce impunity, and enhance accountability. Osman Uma has the rest of the story.
The bill has sparked debates, with public affairs analyst Nelson Ekujimi calling it unnecessary, as the Constitution already provides mechanisms for removing officials guilty of misconduct.
For me, it's a distraction because I think we should be more concerned about building institutions. We should be more concerned about a judicial system of government, a judicial arm of government that will be very, very effective and efficient. We should be more concerned about the legislature performing its constitutional functions. Mind you, even with the immunity clause, the Constitution still allows the legislature to impeach a serving officer if he is found guilty of gross misconduct.
However, many Nigerians have welcomed the proposal, seeing it as a step toward greater transparency in governance. This is not the first attempt to alter the immunity clause. Similar efforts in previous national assemblies, including a 2016 bill by the House leader Femi Gbajabiamila, sought to lift immunity for financial crimes but failed to gain sufficient legislative support. The immunity removal bill is part of a broader constitutional review process which included 42 proposed amendments. These cover devolution of power, local government reforms, state creation, traditional rulers' roles, and fundamental rights enhancements. Whether the bill will succeed remains uncertain, as constitutional amendments require extensive legislative backing at both federal and state levels. However, its progress reflects growing public pressure for stronger accountability mechanisms in Nigeria's political system. For Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, Usman Umar reporting from Abuja.
So in Nigeria, the Chief Justice Kudirat Kekere-Ikun has called on the country's lawyers to continue to uphold high standards of the profession. She further called on the members of the Nigerian bench, which includes judges of the country's high court, to lead this charge. The CJN of Nigeria, Kekere-Ikun, made these remarks at the maiden annual lectures of the Body of Benches of Nigeria and senior officials, which was also attended by the Vice President, Kashim Shettima. Here is the Chief Justice speaking.
Today, more than ever, there's an urgent need to recommit ourselves to the fundamental values of ethics, discipline, and professional responsibility. It is instructive to note that the Body of Benches, as the apex institution of the legal profession in Nigeria, is uniquely positioned to lead the charge in this regard.
And you heard the Chief Justice of Nigeria, Kudirat Kekere-Ikun, speaking at the maiden annual lectures of benches, during which a report on the direction of the Legal Practitioners Disciplinary Committee was also launched. You're still listening to Newslink here on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and around the world. We are live on wadr.org. Here's a reminder of our top stories. Ghana's President Mahama urges judiciary to eschew all forms of corruption. Senegal's customs officials intercept over 7 billion CFA francs counterfeit notes since the beginning of 2025. 2 military officers in Sierra Leone sentenced to 120 years in prison, each over attempt to topple the government. A bill seeking to remove immunity for vice president, governors and their deputy passes second reading in Nigeria. We also have the press review, guest interview and sports news. Stay with us.
Fresh and breaking news all the time. Hear it first as the news breaks, only on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
From the Sahel region, the Nigerian President General Abdurrahman Chiani has reiterated his call for national reconciliation. He urged his fellow citizens to put an end to political resentment in order to collectively advance Niger's development. As a gesture of goodwill, the military leader, who assumed presidency following the national consultation, announced the imminent release of several political detainees. Here's a report by our Niamey correspondent Mutala Zuberu and voiced by Abdullahi Hassan.
General Abdurrahman Chani says he has instructed the Minister of Justice to immediately look into the release of several detainees. A number of political figures will soon be released with no further details as to their identities. Military personnel accused of attempted coups under the former regime will also be released soon. General Abdurrahman Chani was keen to clarify the case of former dignitaries still in detention, including deposed President Mohamed Bazoum.
Forgiveness and reconciliation, as we advocate, must not conflict with the legitimate aspirations of Nigerians for justice. Our profound conviction is that true forgiveness and reconciliation cannot exist without justice.
The forthcoming release of several political and military detainees in the name of national reconciliation is welcomed by political players and civil society. However, they call on the authorities to ensure that former dignitaries are held accountable for their management of the country.
And that was Mutala Zuberu's report and voiced by Abdullahi Hassan. Still in the Sahel, particularly in Mali, Etienne Fabaka Sissoko was released by the court today after serving 1 year in prison sentence. The Malian economist was arrested in March 2024 and convicted of undermining the credibility of the state, insult, and disseminating false information likely to disturb public order. The university professor had denounced in a book the communication propaganda of the government then led by former Prime Minister Shogo Maiga. After his release, his lawyer, Ibrahim Maruf Sako, expressed satisfaction.
This is the newspaper review. Stay abreast and find out what the top stories are in your country.
This is the newspaper review.
The newspaper review.
Let's join Nadi Tete from Accra for the press review.
Greetings from Accra. Let's start off with the Daily Graphic newspaper. Parliament abolishes e-levy. Bill awaits presidential assent to give it effect. President nominates 71 MMDCs for 8 regions. Petition against Chief Justice lawful, lawyers say. And commercial disputes take 900 days to resolve. That's it for the Daily Graphic newspaper. Let's take you to the Ghanaian Times newspaper now. Front page. President Mahama names 72 DCEs in 8 regions pending approval by assemblies. Also, Ghana Traditional Council bans drumming and noise making in Gamashi from May 12 to June 11. And Parliament approves abolition of e-levy. To the Daily Guide newspaper now. Banner headline: e-levy, gold, betting and lotto taxes gone. Other stories here: SkyTrain probe, national security questions former Minister of Railways John Peter Amewu, and April 30 D-Day for Akwetia MP. And also here, Mahama names 71 new MMDCs for 8 regions. And finally, NDC not committed to Galamsey fight. That's according to the NPP. The Business Analyst newspaper: inflation remains uncomfortably high. Bank of Ghana governor says, and Parliament passes bill to abolish e-levy. The New Crusading Guide, front page: NPP tackles Mahama for failing to combat illegal mining. Also here, NHIA to expedite reimbursements to healthcare providers. Also on the front page: adhere to ban on drumming and noise making. Ghana Traditional Council to citizens. And small-scale miners fight Akwetia NDC chairman over alleged harassment and extortion. We'll end with the Daily Searchlight newspaper front page. After failing for 8 years, NPP lampoons NDC over Galamsey. Also on the front page of the Daily Searchlight: fuel stations to operate 24 hours. Eduji, who is the head of the NPA, calls for security agencies' support. That's it for the newspaper review segment. It's back to you in the studio.
Thank you very much, Nadi Tete, for the press review.
Politics, analysis on major news, social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
Our guest interview takes us to Ghana, where Parliament has amended and repealed some laws to do away with a number of taxes, which include the payment of the controversial e-levy, betting tax, among others. This follows the total scrapping of these taxes by the legislative body. The governing NDC, while in opposition, promised to abolish these taxes, which they describe as unconventional. Our guest is the president of the Mobile Money Agents Association of Ghana, Dela Abuchi, and he speaks about the significant impact of the repealed e-levy tax on their operations.
I can say that we are super happy, and as an association and the members across the country, we are happy that government promised that they will repeal the e-levy, and then actually they did so. So we are so happy about that development, and we know very well that this will go a long way to add up to our gains.
How does this really come to do that?
Yeah, you realize that the initial 2 months that the e-levy was introduced by the previous administration, the 2 months of introduction of the e-levy, the Bank of Ghana records, 4,000 of our members were out of business. That was for just 2 months. And so now that the e-levy has been repeal or taken off, we'll realize that it will give us more confidence into the system, and more people will do the mobile money transaction, and that will bring us a direct interest. The more people do the Momo business or Momo transaction, that is, we also get more commission. So if government has taken away that taxes, you realize that you and I and then every customer will be so confident to go to the agent outlet to do a transaction, and that will also add up to our commission. Financial inclusion will become very successful.
Right. So at the back of financial inclusion and digital financial growth, how was the imposition of the e-levy affecting that particular growth?
Before the introduction of the e-levy, you saw that the records of, if you have followed suit with the Bank of Ghana's directive or records, you realize that the e-levy actually was not properly educated among the population. Ghana is purely, the greater part of us, we are informal sector. And then you realize that those who even do more mobile money, more of them are coming from the informal sector. So if you want to talk about the e-levy, how adversely it has affected our transaction, you realize that since most of us are coming from informal sector, the education did not go down very well with most of the people. So that actually also affected the transaction of the Momo business. And now that the government has taken it off, you realize that more of the people will now be patronizing the Momo business or Momo transaction. And the more also, government also have a plan of bringing in a 24-hour economy. And you realize that most of the bank, when it is even 4 o'clock in the afternoon or even 3:30, they have closed. So where do the people get the money to do transaction? Or where do they get the money to do transaction? So you see how important Momo agents will become in this 24-hour economy that the current government wants to implement. So we are going to be very vital. We are going to be the link between this 24-hour economy to government.
Dela Abuchi is the president of the Mobile Money Agents Association in Ghana. And in sports this afternoon, Black Stars forward Antoine Semenyo has stressed the need for Ghana to qualify for the 2026 World Cup as they are determined to show what they are capable of. The Black Stars took a healthy lead at the top of Group I of the qualifying series after beating Chad and Madagascar during the recent international break. Black Stars sit 3 points clear of second place Comoros with 4 games left to play. Semenyo, who scored against Chad at the Accra Sports Stadium, believes that it is important for the Black Stars of Ghana to qualify for the World Cup. And with that, we've come to the end of this edition of Newslink here on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM, Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Mustafa Sek, Mam Kodu Fai, and Umu Danyoko for the technical assistance. Do interact with us via our social media platforms, X formerly Twitter, Instagram at WADR News, and on Facebook at WADR English Service. I am Christopher Ticho. Good afternoon and enjoy the rest of our broadcast.
And many thanks to you for listening to News.